Alright, hello again. This is part 14, Rykros in Phantasy Star Generation 4. And I'm messing around on Dezoris here before we go. I forgot that I added some, Yuna has more to say once you talk to him, once all the problems on Dezoris are solved. So I thought it was just worth talking to him again so you could experience this wonderful Pittsburgh dialect in about a minute. Yeah, and yeah, so we're getting to the end here. Rykros is definitely, I don't know, I think probably the most exciting part of the game. I remember playing this as a kid. Yeah, again on this very Genesis here when I was about 7th grade, 6th or 7th grade, and yeah, I just thought it was so cool that they, you know, added a whole nother planet in the solar system, and how they, you know, tied up the entire game's story. Yeah, they're all into Jags for some reason. Jagoffs, I don't know why. Yeah, fell out. Fell out means got sick. Which I don't understand. Oh yeah, we gotta ask about Raja. Yeah, we've already found the spaceship, so... Oh, I just asked about him. And I think that's it. But yeah, I just thought it was worth visiting him again before we go. So yeah, so we're gonna be off to Rykros here. The real Japanese name is really more like Rykros. Yeah, again with the character limitations in the English version. You know what? Whatever. Oh, the port's right here. Yeah, you know, making Rykros name longer. You know, making the possibility that the names could be longer. The English character names, you know, they don't really need to be longer in English, obviously. But for the Japanese version, it is possible to expand these menus, but it's a lot more trial and error and a lot more programming than, you know, I really was equipped to do, and it would take me quite a long time to do it. So here we are, back into the story. And again, using the cutting room floor's translation notes is, you know, what I use for a guide on the dialogue in the entire game, and then just kind of cleaned it up, you know, as a writer editor, you know, kind of naturally would, speak in each character's voice. So he's really asking why did we go into space, which doesn't make any sense at all to me, at least, in the original Japanese. So it's well, they've already established that they're gonna have to go out into space, you know. Yeah, nothing new or exciting there. And, I added this just to give you a little bit of urgency that, you know, well, what's gonna happen? You know, you can't go on forever, because we gotta, you know, go get back if, you know, Ren would be hey, you know, we don't want to logically die out here for no reason if we have no idea what we're doing. Yeah, then added this line for Rune. Yeah, and then Rudy's original line was, "Wow, this is astounding," I think. And before anything happens, which is, you know, kind of strange. That's something on the page that you would notice, but, you know, you would notice, you know, playing the game and seeing the script, really. And, you know, when you're making the script to a game like this, that's not something you can really see. So Rika's just a little bit more excited there. And then Rudy says, "Woo, you scared me. What happened originally?" Which I also don't really understand. I like that line a lot, so I kept Ren's line. Yeah, Radar is kind of a like a literal Earth acronym, so, you know, doing something more generic like, you know, the sensors of the ship, I think makes more sense. Yeah, and then magic coming into play, you know, he's a magic user, so for him to be even more astonished by it, that this could be like, you know, more powerful magic than, you know, Rune understands. Yeah, and I think, and I mentioned, you know, a couple times in here, I think it's kind of interesting to me how, you know, there's, well, we don't have time to talk about it now. So this is probably the part of the game where I was even most like laser focused on the script, like really communicating, you know, what the original intent was of, you know, the Japanese creators. And again, that doesn't mean literally word for word making a Japanese translation, because that just doesn't make, you know, sense, you know, to the, it's not gonna, that doesn't reach the English speaker the same way. It's like you have to take what the meaning was and, you know, communicate that, you know, in English, basically. So, you know, that means sometimes, you know, different, I want to say parables, but, you know, a different way of phrasing something that, you know, would come across to us. You know, that's like translation work. It's not just taking a literal sentence and, you know, Google Translate's fitting the literal, you know, translation of it out. Yeah, so LaRoof, like the original spelling R-O-O-F, sounds, I don't know, it just sounds kind of silly to me to be like the roof of a house, you know. So this is the same pronunciation, LaRoof, but I just think it makes it a little bit more mysterious. I hoped it didn't sound like French, but I don't think it does. Yeah, and Rudy was so kind of confused before about, you know, what's going on and everything. I think for him to just be like, just as I suspected, this is Rykros, like, well, obviously, you know, so I thought that was kind of a strange line. It just made him more astonished. Worked a colon in there, since that's supposed to be a colon, not a comma. After solar system. Yeah, in her original line, I didn't know such a planet existed. Well, duh, like nobody did. So, you know, this is probably more along the lines of what they were trying, you know, the Japanese were trying to express. Like, who could have imagined that? That's something more logical that we would say in English. Yeah, and again, we, you know, really put our heads together to try to figure out a riddle that would describe what the air prism does and have it cover what it does in each game in Phantasy Star 1, 2, and 4 was kind of difficult. So this is what we came up with. And this is the pseudoscience explanation we came up with. Like the light of Algol was hiding it. I don't remember how we came up with this reflected luminance thing, but that's a real thing, and that's what we decided that the air prism magically does. So you can look that up if you're really interested in it. Gotta work in that at the end of the millennium subtitle. Trivia that I'm sure no one really cares about. The Japanese subtitle is At the End of the Millennium, and it's actually just Phantasy Star At the End of the Millennium, not Phantasy Star 4 in Japanese. It's interesting, and yeah, so just explaining a little bit more, you know, what the air prism does and everything. I think this was a good speech by Rudy, so it's verbatim from the original. Most of this dialogue is really good, you know, for the end of the game here, I think. Yeah, the really shouldn't be capitalized. This wasn't the original, so just, you know, it's the minor thing. So there were a lot of mistakes in kind of LaRue's story after we do the towers, translation mistakes a little bit, but, you know, I thought this... I cut out that "please understand" because Rudy obviously gets really angry, and, you know, we can't change that in the game. That's what's in the game, even though I think it's kind of a ridiculous reaction and a bit out of character. So, but that's what happens, so we have to justify that through dialogue. So, anywhere that LaRue could be a little more curt and a little more, like, authoritarian, seems to fit his voice better, and that would, you know, make Rudy angry. Oh, and this was a little mistranslation in the end. It's basically like the profound darkness has just got here and is starting to, you know, and that's why there's like monsters. It's not like, oh, the darkness is stirring, which would imply like he's coming. Like, it's supposed to be that the darkness is here now, and that's why there's a bunch of monsters running around, evil monsters running, unholy monsters, you know, running around Rykros. So that's it. So that's our little speech. Nothing really, you know, too exciting, you know, in that speech. All the cool stuff comes, you know, afterwards. I think there's treasure for us here, isn't there? Yeah. Guard shield. Oh, and if you look at... This is my first chance to talk about the Guardian stuff. Planar. So, in the original... Actually, I totally forgot that Rudy gets the shield. I mean, it's the Guardian sword. Last time I played this, I forgot to even go into the rest of the tower. The Trimate. Well, sure. I forgot to even do this last time I played this. Yeah, so kind of weirdly, for the coolest items in the game, you know, the Guardian gear, like the Arrow Prism, you know, all the stuff at the end, there's no description for it for some reason in the original English, and I'm assuming the Japanese version. So, yeah, so I just, you know, took it upon myself to write descriptions for, you know, the Rings of Algol, you know, everything that didn't have a description. I just don't think it makes a lot of sense to be like, nothing is known about this item. Especially something like, I don't know, if they're trying to make it, like, mysterious, I would phrase it, you know, a different way, I think. Yeah, it's just a lot more fun to just, you know, tell you what it does, you know. Okay, so we do go this way first. I'm using my little maps here. But yeah, kind of what I was saying, and I've said this multiple times, there's, oh, I gotta get rid of stuff. We don't even need that. There's gotta be a bunch of stuff we can just drop, like that. I don't think we need a Guardian shield either, really. Yeah, we're really done with that, but it's too cool to drop. We're not gonna need these. But yeah, you know, and like I understand too that we usually want, like, what's closest to, like, the Japanese, in terms of, like, the translation. That's why we have all these translation projects. But, I think it's important to differentiate, like, what that means. Like, for a lot of people, having the most, like, literal translation possible. And I mean in terms of, like, taking a very Japanese phrase that, you can literally translate into English. Like, think a lot of the, I don't know, I guess the stranger lines in, like, the later Metal Gear Solid games, because he got really mad that, yeah, Kojima, like, got mad at Jeremy Blaustein for, how he localized the game, amazingly, and, the game certainly would not have been as popular, and it's always been a lot more popular in America, than it has been in Japan, and, I'm probably Europe, too. I can't speak for Europe, with Metal Gear, but, yeah, it's because of this one guy's work, really, that, he added so much to this series, and becoming so big for, Konami, and for, it really launched Kojima into, superstardom, because Policenauts didn't come out here, so nobody bought Snatcher, unfortunately, and, yeah, I've just always been kind of, like, disappointed that, Kojima did that, and every Metal Gear game has suffered since then, and, like, if Metal Gear Solid 2 had, a more, like, natural translation, maybe people wouldn't have hated it so much when it came out and been so confused by it, and even understanding, the theme of the game and everything, how information, controls, looking at how information controls people, but that last conversation, with the computers, like, it really does pretty much come out of nowhere. It's very long, it's very confusing, especially the first time you play it, and, it's not much about it, I would say, is, like, poetic. Like, think of like Blade Runner or something. I think Blade Runner is pretty, like, I didn't really get it the first time I saw Blade Runner, which I saw because of Snatcher, but, a lot of, like, Rutger Hauer's lines at the end are very, like, very, like, poetic, like, all these moments about to be lost, like, tears and rain, very simple, but I think it works really well in English, and, a lot of times, Japanese and English are so different that, if you just try to take a literal line and translate it exactly, it's not going to give the same... It's not going to get the same emotional response, I guess, from it to an English speaker is kind of what I mean. So, there's a lot of resistance in terms of, like, a lot of fan translations that, make what someone might perceive as, like, changes to the script, regardless of if it makes the game better or, like, more enjoyable. So, I have to confess, it really just confused me that people are very forgiving and understanding of, like, gameplay changes, it's like, well, obviously they made the game just like the, oh, whoops, yeah, they make some changes, oh my god, why did I do that, yeah, they make some gameplay changes, especially, like, Enix RPGs seem to get a lot of changes mechanically and everything, but most of what the Japanese original creators put into the game survives a localization in terms of, like, how the game plays, and that's, like, the core essence of the game, of a video game to me. So it's just interesting to me that people seem very, I know, like, nitpicky is maybe not very a fair word, but a lot more critical, I think that's fair, of, script work than, like, having, like, weird gameplay changes. If people don't really like it, they'll just be like, well, I don't really care, or, that sounds interesting, but I'm not going to play that version. No one gets, like, at least I don't see people get, like, angry about it, or be like, this is terrible, you, like, ruined it. So I don't know, that's just my take, so, that's why I started, this Phantasy podcast to, talk to people who are, fan translating games, and I really am interested in like the process, and not just the programming, but all these like editorial decisions basically you have to make, in terms of like are you gonna, how much are you gonna work on the script, like how subjective, like my episode with the Naveltail team was really fun, and Naveltail on Action RPG on Dreamcast that never came out here. That's a really, really fantastic and like special game. Like if you like Knights, like at all, I'm trying to think of what else it's kind of like, but it reminds me of Knights a lot, even though it's not even like a first-party Sega game. But it's really cool, really special game, and there's so many interesting phrases that she put in the game, so it was really cool to figure out, like, okay, well, like, what was the Japanese, and, how did you decide to, editorialize this, and, she did it in, like, such a really, the team did such a, like, a great job. Kargadin is the main translator, on the game. Let's see. She can do one guard. Oh, she can do both, actually. It's the only time in the game that you need both, that it's helpful to have both, guard claws. Can Rune use the guard shield? Oh, yes, I bet this is a change. I'm sure I made this, yeah, I'm sure I made this so you can actually make use of the, Guardian shield, because, like, otherwise, like, who's gonna use it? Like, Han, I guess, in the original. So let's go to the script here. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I did make a couple changes to who can use shields, basically. I thought that was the only gameplay change that this game really needed. Some of the shields are kind of useless. I feel like unless, if it makes sense that these, like, lesser characters, the non-combat characters, can use them, I feel like that's what makes sense more. Alright, okay. Testing. Okay, you finally come. His speech is a little strange to me. He's like, oh, I lost it. There we go. They come and come, but they're all sissies. I've been getting kind of bored. If you pass the scrutiny, let me try to take me myself if you can, or try to take me if you can. That's kind of a weird. I wouldn't think this guy would call other monsters or anything, sissies. It's not really like RPG epic, ethereal being, immortal ethereal being, like, kind of talk. Yeah, so it doesn't have any translation notes on the beginning of what he says, so I just kind of went off of, what we had. Yeah, and note he's not an evil creature, so, like, FS and, Silver Fang, they have no extra effect on him. I usually like to do Devin first, and then I'll do Sanner. There's only one. I think that's a physical attack. I think that's why I had the inclination to do Devin first. Let's try Nawat. Let's try Crosscut. Now we'll do Sanner. Crosscut does seem more. I'm not really sure why, like, Sanner. I mean, how Rayblade works. I think Rayblade does extra to unholy enemies. I think, but I'm not sure. So it's like, I really don't know why Crosscut seems to be doing more damage here. And I'm probably just gonna do this until we're done. Yeah, and as I mentioned before, too, what's his name? I don't see his name here. Oh, Devars. Devars is the English name, or the original English name, and yeah, like, again, I looked at all the, you know, the names. It seems like a lot of the ancients, like the Pullman names, have like a, you know, 2-letter prefix like this, and like all the Phantasy Star 3 characters, even though you don't know in the English version, they have the same Pullman naming convention. So, like Lashiak. So his name from the katakana seems to be a closer match, you know, to the katakana and to the in-game, you know, kind of like universe. I don't know why she's taking so much more damage. We give her a double. Oh no, shoot. I didn't mean to do that. Oh my god. I didn't mean to do that. Let's just start this. By basically unlimited. I was afraid that Nobot was going to kill him. I was going to go back and have Rudy do... I was going to have him heal Rika. But that didn't work out so good. Let's use another Devon and see if it helps the damage. Oh, never mind. Right, speech time. Yeah, his original line, "You're better than I thought," that's comforting. Go ahead and take these objects, they're the proof you need. You know, that's not very inspiring, I don't think. So, just make that a little more, you know, RPG epic. So yeah, so we'll look at these before we equip them. Yeah, I added descriptions for, the rings. It's like they're such important, cool items. It's like, you know, feels like they deserve them. Yeah, and Palma was, you know, the most sophisticated planet and the seat of the government and everything, so, you know, I thought of like a, you know, kind of like a regal blue, you know, like a royal purple regal blue kind of thing for it. So, la-di-da. And I think I buffed the, I might have buffed the rings like a little bit. Just because they're like really cool items. And the game is like, this game is so, you know, easy for an RPG, you know. So it's like, little things, the small things that I buffed, like, I don't find a lot of joy, especially anymore in like turn-based RPGs. So I play RPGs, you know, when I do for like, you know, the story and, you know, hanging out with the characters, you know, and all that. And we can get rid of that. Yeah, so I think it's more fun to, you know, I know there's like a brutal, you know, mod of this or something, and that's fine if you know, enjoy RPGs like that, but, you know, I really don't, and I, you know, I think, like, the person who would be inclined to play, you know, this version of the game, like, yeah, I know people, you know, are into, like, the small gameplay enhancements and things like that, too, but, you know, I really wanted to, keep, you know, mess with the game engine, you know, kind of keep that to, like, a minimum. So I gotta change her claws. genocide, and I want to see what I wrote for genocide claw. Oh, I think that must have already had a description. We go. I so appreciate that at the end of this game, like, the dungeons are so quick to get through. Really appreciate it. Especially after Phantasy Star 2. And 3, because obviously I played, you know, PS2 and then PS3, you know, when I was a kid, and finally got to play this. What did I just mean to do? I wish we got to spend more time on Rykros and, like, learn more about, you know, these deities, these characters. Oh, that's one thing I wanted to make sure that I talked about. So as you could see from, like, my project page and everything, I go over, you know, where I got my information from, you know, when I made, like, these changes to the story and things like that. And there's so much. If you're a Phantasy Star fan, you have to go through, like, the Phantasy Star compendium that Rebecca Kapowski translated, and I got to do a podcast episode with her, a question and answer, that was, like, just super awesome, because she's been, like, she's translated so much for the Phantasy Star and Lunar, you know, communities, just, like, out of the goodness of her heart, and yeah, she's really awesome. She's really awesome. So, she translated the Phantasy Star Compendium, which has tons of behind-the-scenes, you know, info on the games, basically, that didn't make it into the game. So there's lots of, like, I think kind of vital stuff to know about, like, the lore, and, you know, like, oh, you know, the timeline of the universe. I forgot he has air slash, jerk. This Star Mist. Just looking at my map here. 7. I think we do have to go. Yeah, we go in the middle one. Get treasures. And I didn't add much in terms of, like, the treasure chests in this game or anything. Besides, like, adding, like, the map that I added to the first dungeon, which isn't really that helpful, but, you know, I think it's got enough helpfulness that if it can be in the game and I make it a droppable item, I think it's, like, worth having in the game, basically. Even though it's, like, you know, kind of glitchy and, like, not complete, and you don't get, like, a cursor to be like you are here on the map. You just get, like, the map. So I think it helps. The only reason it really helps is like later on in the game when you're trying to, you get the hovercraft and or the hydrofoil, and you're trying to find like Yuzo Island, and what, Tarinko. Yeah, I need this. Oh yeah, so the planer that I came up with for all the guard stuff, I think it kind of sucks that we don't know anything about the guard hardware. You know, we don't know if they're, like, my initial inclination was to make them nei items, but you know, obviously that's, like, you know, kind of a stretch, and if the creators, you know, wanted to do that, maybe they would have, or whatever. But wow, look at that, jeez. It's cold. Let's get him back up. It's a lot of damage. Yeah, so in Phantasy Star 3, all the final gear, like the best gear that's not like the sacred weapons that become the Nei weapons, that are transformed into the Nei weapons, is planar armor. And I have no idea if that's supposed to be referencing like a real molecule or like an in-game, you know, is it like Laconia? Is it like a newer, better form of Laconia? No idea. And there's no item descriptions in Phantasy Star 3, so it's just like a planar armor, planar stuff. So I just kind of took that as, well, that's the only thing that makes sense to, you know, call the guard stuff without going, you know, out there and calling it, you know, rename it to Nei gear. You know, be like, well, maybe it's made out of the stuff that all the Phantasy Star 3 endgame stuff is, because we have no way to know if we have no reason to think that's not true. We have no reason to think that that would be inaccurate or against anything, you know, established in the lore. Because, you know, Phantasy Star 4 doesn't have, you get no idea, like, what the heck guard stuff is. And the full name is Guardian, you know, as you could imagine, Guardian Armor, Guardian Claw, etc. But, you know, no room to add that. Around the circle here. And here we are. Yeah, so one of the only pieces of treasure that I really actually added was I added an extra pair of Guardian Armor to the Anger Tower, which we'll be seeing soon. So I think this game is like, you know, it's a breeze to play. It's really balanced. I just want to see what he says here. And I think, oh, and for the notes, he said ritual again. I think the original just called it like a task in the original English. And of course, it is more like, you know, a ritual. Yeah, and that's from the translation notes, like directly. You know, that's really what he was saying. Maybe they shortened it to task for space on that line. I have no idea. We good to go? Oh, it's Rika. She should equip the guard claw here because it gives her more defense. And obviously you can't, you know, kill this guy in one hit. And he's not evil, so it's the only time in the game where you need both those guardian claws. Dum-de-dum-de-dum. Strength tower. Oh yeah, so he's like, oh, there's nothing to fear. So he's... Yeah, so this line is kind of strange. There's nothing to fear from the Hand of Darkness. I just changed it. I mean, I just kept it, but it's supposed to be like... The hand behind the darkness is insignificant, is what the translation, the Cutting Room Force suggests, but I don't think it's that confusing, honestly, just to be like, you know, if you understand that these guys aren't evil, you can understand that they're like, well, we're way more powerful than the darkness, and we're gonna try to beat you too. Yeah, so instead of like prove that you've got the qualifications to be protectors, you know, change it to like, you know, this immortal foe, you know, in combat. I think it's a little more RPG dramatic, a little less stilted. Yeah, what was his original name? Saluz, like Lews, like, yeah, that's a way. See, in Saluz, he's got a hyphen in his name, and the original Devars did not have a hyphen. Like, that's obviously inconsistent. So, you know, just try to notice like these really small things, you know, and you know, that you wouldn't even maybe notice, you know, when you play through my patch. But you know, hopefully you know you just subtly think that like, oh, this is, you know, cohesive. 218 again, pretty low. Players. Yeah, there's no lots again. Shit. can double slash. Oh no, we just need to center. Yeah, and I didn't, and again, not being a programmer anyway, I didn't get into, like, the algorithms of, like, how much damage spells do and how, you know, percent, you know, effective they are, you know, and this and that. There's a Trimate. You know, why burn a Trimate? Just keep him. I feel bad Rika's just got to heal everybody, but, she wants to see some action. Yeah, depending on how your kind of natural play style, I don't really know which of these two guys is easier. Maybe he's a little harder because he's doing more varied attacks. We can just get away with regular SAR. Force field. I should have used Gift Star the last turn because I could have used a double slash there. Yeah, that does a lot of damage. Yeah, oddly enough, Ren takes like no technique damage. Or I guess that's magic. Takes like no magic damage there. Yeah, so again, getting into the nitty-gritty programming of all, you know, that kind of stuff about like, why is Ren a robot? And you know, he takes like no damage. He takes like no damage from Tandle, but she even like messed him up there. Like, it's like, I don't know. It's beyond the scope of what, you know, my goal with the project was to just like make the, you know, the dialogue more natural, the translation errors, you know, change, and yeah, again, I've mentioned, you know, kind of like multiple times, and I don't think it really would have changed my project that much, but I actually never would have done this in the first place if there were any Phantasy Star 4 script mods out at the time, because when I started this like 2018, and you know, it made me very unhappy that like Phantasy Star, you know, Final Fantasy 4 and 5 and 6 have like 20 translations, and Chrono Trigger is like 80, and like all kinds of mods and everything, and this amazing gem of a game, which you know, I prefer the universe of this game, you know, just personally over those. Of course, I had a Genesis growing up, so that, you know, colors my my attitude a little bit. But I was like, wow, the Phantasy Star is just like so neglected, and you know, so that's pretty much the same. Yeah, so I just like really couldn't believe like no one had worked on Phantasy Star 4 yet in terms of fixing all these translation errors, and you know, like I said, that, you know, this is my opinion, that the translation was fine, you know, when I was in 6th grade, but I feel that just playing through it again, there's just too much awkwardness in the localization for me to like fully enjoy it and fully enjoy these characters. That's just my opinion. So every time I'd want to play through this, I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna have to watch it. I'm gonna have to read like Parma, you know, for like 20 hours, and it's like I just don't want to deal with that. It just like really bothered me. Off we go to our super tiny little planet here. Yeah, it is too bad we can't do more here because it's such a cool, you know, like look at that. It's just like such a Phantasy Star, you know, place. It's just like classic Phantasy Star. You know, that cool art up there and the stars, and think I'm gonna break this up into... episodes, actually. Oh, same thing. Yeah, I think I'm gonna... Well, I'll finish... I mean, I called this Rykros, so I'll finish Rykros here. Alright, so here we go with some pretty big, you know, pretty much the most important plot stuff in the game, you know, is here. And there's, I mean, nothing game-breaking, but, you know, there's some significant departures in the Japanese translation to what we got in English here. So, very first thing, somehow they got billions. This is supposed to be millions, so I changed that. Interestingly, the concept of two life forms were split into... Well, see, the Cutting Room Floor's notes actually don't really make sense here. It says, neither the main nor Japanese scripts mention that the two life forms from the split were lesser beings. Okay. So, I think that's kind of nitpicking myself, because it's just like, well, they're mathematically lesser. They're half of what this thing was. So, whatever. So that's what they pointed out. So, I just made the distinction that instead of calling them lesser beings, I just called them two beings of equal power. Meaning that, you know, these separate, they're identical, basically, but different. And I just changed the phrasing a little bit here. Because it just said, many billions of years ago, a spiritual life form split into two lesser beings who have eventually begun to fight. Why? Why would there be conflict between, you know, why would, in the simplest term, you know, they were, you know, what's the cosmic difference between good and evil, you know? One is, you know, Paragon Renegade, you know, one is, you know, share power, one is you consolidate power. So that seems to be the logical reason why these beings would fight. So just in a succinct way, that's what I, you know, got across there. And it took me, I didn't realize this the first couple times I played the game as a kid, but I think the intro of the game is telling you this story that we get now from LaRouche. So, because it wasn't obvious to me, you know, initially I just thought, because the language is similar, that I would make the language even more similar, so hopefully it'll ring in your mind that, you know, this is the story, you know, in the intro in the game, basically. And, this concept, so basically, like, the main differences in terms of the English, what we got in the Japanese, was that, it's not really another dimension, it's like the space between dimensions, so something even, like, greater and, like, more mysterious is what the concept is supposed to be, not just another dimension. I mean, it's kind of 6 1/2 dozen in terms of what you know, what actually happens. I like that the original script was just the victorious side was called the Great Light and the defeated one's Profound Darkness. I like that they changed it to we call the victorious side, so it's gonna heighten Rudy's. So originally he says, "I see light and darkness," like, so this, I think the line is implying like this beginning growing skepticism that he has of this, you know, great light being. So, instead of being like, I see, you know, that just means, like, I understand, that can mean a million different things. The subtext here is, like, he's suspicious that, okay, you won, and you called yourself the good guys, like, you know, like everybody does in history, you know, who won, basically. Yeah, again, it's more, this dimensional portal thing is, you know, an invention of the English script. I don't think this matters that... For practical reasons, I don't think it matters that much, but again, like, this is what the original Japanese story is, so that's what I wanted to communicate. Yeah, and another kind of interesting distinction is that the solar system is not the seal. The 3 planets are the seal, and the English version, where does it make the mistake? Yeah, so right here he says, yes, it is the algal solar system is the original English. So the seal is not the planets, and this is why it's so important that when Palma was destroyed, it took out 1/3 of the seal, not 1/4. And it's not like, oh, Algo, like, the star kept the seal, like, in place. It's like, no, the 3 planets are the seal. So that's why it's, like, such a danger that the last cycle, Palma was destroyed. Yeah, not Parmenians, not Dizolizians, Palmans, Dizorians. Damn it. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have any explanation about why this does happen every 1,000 years. I wish the Japanese did explain that, but that's not something that I could just make up a reason for. So we just have to take it, as it is. Yeah, and I added this like ... hibernation to show that he's obviously trying to present themselves as like good people, and it's not like, oh, like we put this thing in jail, it's like, oh, it's just sleeping, Yeah, and again, the real name is really Rykros. You could say it's Rykros as well. That's why I kept it Rykros. I think it's fine as is. And I can't remember the katakana off the top of my head for Rykros, but I think it is a cross and not a cross, actually, but I can't remember. Yeah, this is a really good question, just on Rudy's part. That should actually be a capital. It should actually be a capital T, because it's really a new sentence, even though it was preceded by a ... Oh no, maybe not. To remind the protectors the mission they were born to do that's not a sentence. So I guess I did that right, and that's the original game script did that too. So that's good. Yeah, and I think most of this is pretty well written in the English. So, like, yeah, I massage it a little bit, but I feel like this exchange is pretty good. I don't think it explains Rudy's anger, really. I don't think it explains his anger very well, but all the Great Lights speech, I think they did a good job with. Despite, like, it's a space between dimensions, not dimension. I don't really think that's that important. Yeah, again, they call it break through the portal. I just refer to, more of like his metaphorical cage, basically. It's interesting that Dark Force is a physical being. I always just assumed he was like kind of like a genie kind of ghost, based on mainly his Phantasy Star 2 impression. And it was like, how do you fight a ghost? Like, wouldn't your swords go through it? And your magic, like, and only like maybe like magic work on it and like proton packs or something. But it's interesting that he is a physical being that implies like it can be killed, and that's why, that's how they justify, you can kill Dark Force, basically this, godlike thing. This always bothers me in the scripts that they just say like, oh, one person did it all by themselves, basically. Well, it's like, of course, Phantasy Star is, awesome, parties. Like, yeah, you had one person drive the action, in each game, but one main person, but they didn't do it by themselves, so and that reinforces what we as a party are doing here. It's not just Rudy who's gonna have to battle this thing one-on-one, but he couldn't do it without his friends, just like Alyssa and Rolf, Eustace, can't do it without your friends. If you just try to do it yourself, you're renegade, you're a jerk. Yes. And I expanded on this a little bit. It originally just said destroyed the planet of Palma in battle. That sums up the story a little bit, but I think the story warrants this, and be like, well, and basically be like, people did this to ourselves, I think is important. I mean, and that's the main theme of like Phantasy Star 2, that everyone's need for comfort, and just kind of like, oh, like I don't really care like what's going on with the government and blah blah blah, and oh, everything's taken care of us, we don't need to work, this is great. That obviously screwed everybody and almost destroyed the solar system. So I thought it was important to kind of double down on that before we reach the end game here. Yeah, so this is the more accurate to say, like, well, yeah, part of the seal is gone, but like literally one of the seals is gone, and that's like a bigger deal than just like, oh, like part of the seal got like damaged. It's like, no, like one of the 3 seals like is gone. Now there's only 2. Yeah, and because of that, because it's so weak, because of that, now he feels like he can, completely destroy the seal. Yeah, so closer to the Japanese was in the prototype English, which is either way, that's what's gonna happen. But I just think it's funny that he's just like, maybe. So I thought possibly was a little more, a better word choice, but expressed the same thing. Yeah, so the original was just, once again, wield its frightening power. Well, what is that power going to do? It's gonna destroy, the known universe, basically. So, like, let's say that, because that's what's gonna happen. Yeah, and for some reason, the original says someone will conquer the darkness and render the seal meaningless. Yeah, but we're getting to the point where Rudy is, super mad and angry about basically like his destiny being like dictated for him, and I still think it's a very weird reaction. I don't think it's handled great in the game, but and so like the original English line is like completely wrong here, which is like someone like us, comma, which is obviously like they didn't finish the statement or something, but it sounds like he's accepting the mission when he's like, violently against this concept of like, we're gonna have to battle like, God, basically. And like, you're ordering us to do that, and like, I'm not gonna, you guys are the same, and I'm not gonna do it for you, is what, and he gets super mad, so it makes no sense for him to be like, someone like us, and then just like, throw his big hissy fit and like rage quit. Yeah, and again, the original, like, enter his dimension, it's not, we're not gonna go to his dimension, like, you have to go, like, inside this thing, and, inside is, like, very being, and, destroy it, like, from the inside, basically. That's, like, the only chance that you have. It's not like, walk through a door and fight a monster. It's supposed to be, like, you have to travel, like, we'll let you, like, travel, like, inside this thing, while he's still, shackled, and that's the only chance that you possibly have. Yeah, and instead of like withstand the largest part of the largest part of the power of the darkness, I made it a little more specific that the rings, and that's what the characters say later. It's like, oh well, we only have 5 rings of power. It's like, well, what do? I guess they let you, travel and survive inside wherever the hell, the darkness is, and survive inside of, this being. And, yeah, again, emphasizing that we're giving you this power. It's because of us that you have this opportunity, and by the way, you just have to do what we say anyway. Yeah. Have been born to do, I think, makes less sense than just like we're born to do. Alright, so here we go. Here's the rage quit. Oh, and then that line where I had like the very being, I think the May prototype translated that as mind, but it's more like the heart or bosom is the translation note, so that's why I said like very being. So it's like you're literally going like inside the thing. So yeah, so his original line, who do you think we are? I don't really know what I personally don't really understand like what he's trying to express and how that fits into the concept of this reaction, so I made it obvious that this is what he's specifically angry about, like his fate being dictated for him by these, nameless, things. And I want to emphasize that, we're just, you guys are, this is what he's mad about too. It's like, well, you guys are just, big cosmic deities. You don't care about us. You don't care about people. Why should I listen to you when you guys are, exactly the same? Yeah, and I obviously cut the infamous, I'm not going to fight for no mission. Like, anytime someone's like, I think this Phantasy Star 4 script is pretty good. I wouldn't change anything. It's like, yeah, like, no matter how much you like it, there's a lot that, with 20 years of appreciating this game, perhaps could use some work. Yeah, this is a great question in his part too. Rudy is like very astute actually in this conversation, despite his like his angry moments. So this isn't really explained. It's just very vague in the Japanese, I guess, and the final English is just like, it's not here anymore, instead of being like a vague answer. So, these are, pretty, these are the origin of the universe is because of these two beings that were split from one. Obviously, there's like, who knows, what's going on with them. So I just had LaRue say like, well, he's beyond like, physical place, and like of what he is. It's just like, well, it can't help you, is all it means. Oh, and then, I'm gonna talk about this too. Basically, like, if they made another Phantasy Star, it was gonna be about them, like, going against the Great Light, basically, like the original team. This is in the Phantasy Star, compendium. So, whether it was gonna be, like, a final threat, or it was gonna make some kind of move in response to, like, the Profound Darkness, like, completely being destroyed, they don't say, and they don't go into what, their real ideas were, but yeah. So, I think, this conversation needed a lot of work to to justify Rudy's actions within the concept of what, he's saying. That's what I tried to do. Instead of being, like, and he's like, oh, Mission Protectors, who the heck cares? It has nothing to do with us. Like, well, yeah, obviously it has something to do with you, and he knows it is, because the universe is in danger, so that's not fair. That makes no sense for him to say, like, this has nothing to do with us. He might say, like, the war, or the blood feud between you has nothing to do with us, but, like, this situation obviously has something to do with him. So, by making him more focused on, these two, like, autocratic, godlike beings, and, it's like, oh, this is like what, all these heroes in the past were fighting against, freedom from, powers like you. That's what they've been fighting the whole time. They've just never had to deal with, like, a light, focused being, deciding their fate, at least as far as they knew. Yeah, and she just, originally she just exclaims, like, Chaz, Rudy. So, I mean, I think she should have a little bit more to say to him. Same thing with Rune, you know. Like, after witnessing, you know, Rudy, like, walk out of the room and, like, say all this shit to, you know, I'm trying not to swear, alas, to the roof. You know, Rune's already hot-tempered, so he would have something to say. And it says there's no one single truth. Like, I don't think that's a very strong statement, so I think this communicates the same. Like, this isn't as black and white as you're making it to be, is really what I think he's saying, so. Yeah, and again, he's still like, instead of Rune being like, what is it? What is it, Rudy? He should still be like, what? It's like, he's still gonna be like, you know, miffed and, you know, obviously pretty mad that perhaps Rudy sabotaged their whole chance to, like, you know, do anything about this or get any kind of, you know, semi-divine help. Yeah, and then his other line, to tell you the truth, I don't know what's going on. Like, well, yeah, obviously. So I thought he could be a little more articulate, you know, in... And instead of Rune being like, oh, great, like, well, obviously none of them really know what's going on, so instead of being exasperated that Rudy is confused, he's gonna try to, you know, in this next conversation, he wants to hear Rudy out, and he's gonna try to make it right, and not give it, like, a sarcastic, you know, oh, great. So, I love in the original that they, you know, call this back to, you know, to Alice, but, it doesn't really have anything, like, of substance in the original when it says, when Alice died, you explained things to me, Rika tried to lift my spirits, but I don't understand. I can only say that the person who taught me everything had died. I would have sacrificed my life for her. It's even in Japanese, their translation notes here are kind of strange. And I don't really understand, like, why they phrased any of this like this in the original. So, I tried to call back to the, since he mentions when Alice died, I tried to call back to the conversations that they had instead of saying, you explain things to me. You know, so I try to just expand upon, like, well, what is he thinking here? And, like, why did he say this in the original script? Like, what does he really mean? So, this might be a little verbose, but, I think I really wanted to, like, keying off of Rune's expression here, I think is even more important than, like, the original dialogue line was, that's all fine, isn't it, Rudy? But, you know, I just think this is a lot truer to the characters to speak to the circumstances that they're going through right now, and, you know, to try to understand each other. Yeah, there's just... The original, I think, just needed a lot more dialogue, for the character exchanges. Like, LaRue's conversation, I think, is really solid, but it definitely needs, like, more character interaction to really understand, like, what he was trying to say. Yeah, because originally he says, oh, but gradually I found out there are people who depend on me to fight. You know, Rude does. And then, yeah, again, all Rune says is, that's all fine, isn't it, Chaz? Yeah, and instead of, like, outright rejecting, well, I can't have the fate of Algo resting on my shoulders, and this is just a mission handed down from, like, you know, God, basically. You know, well, what's he really afraid of? It's like, it's not the, like, he can, I think he can bear the responsibility of, like, you know, because he just said, I know that I'm used to, you know, that I'll have to fight for other people. So I don't think that's too big for him, but what would scare anybody is, like, in an RPG when it's like, oh, you have to fight God, basically, and, you know, that's rarely, I feel, I can't think of any instances where someone's like, we have to fight, like, God, basically. Like, no one ever seems to, like, really, like, flip out over that. It's just kind of, like, something that you grow in power and that your characters naturally have accepted the mantle for by the time they get to that part of the game, I think. But I just think people should say out loud more, like, how are we gonna fight, like, a divine being? Like, how can we even do that? Yeah, and this original concept of if we dance to its tune, we're no different than Zio. I think that's really important. And I added in, you know, Lashik here too. So I really like that original line, so I just expanded on that. Yeah, so I feel like this conversation is just a little more cohesive, you know, is my hope. And the original is kind of pretty abrupt. Chaz, there's someone I want you to meet. Let's go to the Esper Mansion. The answer lies there. You know, and that's a little authoritative on Rune's part to just, like, order, you know, like, okay, we're going to Esper Mansion. So to make this more of a personal plea, because, like, Rudy's had this huge freak out. He doesn't know, like, what to do or what to think. It's like, what are we really trying to accomplish here? It's like, okay, I want you to meet someone. You'll know what to do after that. I promise. I thought that pretty much sums it up. Alright, and this time... Yeah, let's go to Esper Mansion. And this time I will start a new episode. I'll do this and then the Anger Tower, and that'll be our second last episode. So this is part 14. Yeah, flip over to part 15.